Today, I'm so excited to interview Vonnetta West, who carries a beautiful heart to value all of humanity. Vonnetta, I'm so extremely honored to have you share your story today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Melody. I'm excited.
My first connection with you was absorbing the training that you were bringing on the beloved community through the Dr. Martin Luther King Center. You know, I heard you share with such confidence and such love. Vonnetta, you are a beautiful human being. But I've also learned that everybody has a story, don't they?
Yes.
Were there any situations in your life that were unjust, devaluing, hurtful, things that caused you to believe lies about your value and your worth?
Well, absolutely. You know, growing up as a little girl in Alabama, there are moments where you realize that somehow people view you for whatever reason as less than at school in different situations. I actually was bullied in high school because of my weight. The story I always tell, I almost failed the 9th grade.
Wow.
Because I skipped school because I was being bullied. And we were informed at the end of the school year that I might have to repeat the 9th grade. My parents had to meet with an instructor, a teacher at my high school. But that's the impact of bullying and being devalued, not even wanting to show up or be seen. So that's just one story of knowing what it means for me personally, to know what it means for someone to discount you and then to verbally abuse you as well.
You know, we talk a lot about race, we talk a lot about gender, we talk a lot about different aspects of devaluation or prejudice. And here you just brought up another one, and we don't often address that, but looking at someone's physical appearance or their weight, to just devalue them and be critical of them, it's just wrong. It
is, and it's painful. You know, I wonder how we can better teach our children. That's one of the main things I've started to think about. How do we ensure that our children aren't radicalized to the idea of treating people less than?
Yes.
And I think if we tap into that gets to all these other isms, that we teach them not to bully with words, not to bully physically, and also not to have thoughts that devalue people based on our own hierarchies of what matters.
That's so
and
true.
Who matters.
And I'm so excited because we're going to do another interview after You're My Story where you can really bring your expertise to the table and really equip us. But going back to your story, could you share any other illustrations of some of the painful things that actually became your purpose later on? But what were some of those things?
That actually became my purpose. You know, I don't think, Melody, that I would have the capacity to guide people through some of these difficult conversations and ideas were I not touched by it personally. I think I could develop skill sets, but some of the things that really resonate with me are because of what I endured with bullying and also what happened in my household. I grew up until I was in the 3rd grade. My father was an alcoholic, which meant a kind of home where you hide when a parent comes home, when they're abusive verbally, when they're alcoholic. So that created for me a sense of not wanting to be seen, even in the home. And that was through the 3rd grade. My father's been sober for over 30 years, which is a powerful testimony for our family. But still experiencing the impact and the influence of that as an 8-year-old. And how does that show up in my engagement? Yeah. Now, I'm not one of those folks who believes that you have to go through horrible things in order to do good things.
Correct.
I just don't typically believe that. I think that causes us to inflict pain on one another for the purpose of being able to say, hey, you got to go through this in order to be great. And we shouldn't do that. But I do believe, of course, that God can take the things that we've gone through and use them to shape us, and that helps people.
Do you have any other things that you'd like to share about your past before you go into how you overcame?
I grew up in a small black town, Tuskegee, Alabama. And so racism didn't become something that was wholly visible to me until I was in college. And then it was really visible. So as an 18-year-old coming from Tuskegee and then going to a predominantly white college in the South, that's when I began to know tension. I could immediately recognize tension because of race. Because I knew something was different, because my experience had been so full that when I was in a space where I knew I was being treated differently because of being Black, I could note it fully. So much so that I was scheduled to go to a college. I had a scholarship, and I went to the orientation, and the tension was so heavy that I told my parents, I'm not sure if I want to go to school here.
Wow.
And then I went to a journalism workshop at another college, and there was tension there, but not as heavy. And 2 weeks before school was supposed to start, I was supposed to be a freshman in college with a scholarship. I switched schools. And one of the main reasons was that pervasive sense of tension, that hierarchy, the ability to see that I was being treated less than, even at an orientation, where the other school that I eventually went to, I might not have been able to tell it as readily, or if there wasn't that tension. But that was just a moment that I remember knowing something was different, because I grew up in a space, well educated. My teachers were phenomenal. When I was in high school, I was reading Richard Wright. We would read Beowulf and Canterbury Tales, but we also read Invisible Man and Their Eyes Were Watching God, and I read Maya Angelou, and I grew up reading Dr. King's in the 11th grade. I read Letter from Birmingham Jail. My public speaking teacher assigned it to me. So I had started to study about what inhumanity could do. I was assigned Night by Elie Wiesel to do a speech on. And I think this all was a part of a plan for me, a divine plan for me to be able to help navigate and then to be knowledgeable myself about the things we can do to each other when we don't care, when we're inhumane. So hitting college and feeling that tension, I think, was a part of that path as well, to learn how to deal with it, to say, hey, I might not be able to get to a place where it doesn't exist, but I can definitely be in a place where it's less than what I experienced at that orientation at the college I was originally planning to go to.
Wow, it's so beautiful how so many different dynamics came together to begin to make deposits inside of you that you are continuing to use today to impact humanity for good. Were there any specific individuals, a teacher or a coach, an individual, just someone that just saw your worth and wanted to make investment into you personally?
Yes. But again, I'll go back to high school. For me, when I think about teachers, I'm filled with so much gratitude. In high school, I had a journalism teacher who was also my English teacher in the 11th grade, Janice Johnson. I always want to honor her, J.C. Johnson. She's no longer living. She's transitioned. She lived down the street from me in my neighborhood. And at an age where I think we really need to hear and be spoken into about purpose and what we're gifted to do, she did that for me. I could write and I could speak, and I was, when I say I could speak, I mean I could deliver speeches on different topics very well at a young age. And she would tell me, you need to enter into some journalism contests. And so she placed me in these contests and I would win.
Wow.
More than that, she was so invested, she would get my parents' permission to drive me to these ceremonies and to these competitions. As a teacher, that was going the extra mile. And then in addition to that, when I was saying I was going to major in college in computer science and computer programming, she said, no, I really think you should major in English. And when other people would ask me, what are you going to do with an English degree? J.C. Johnson would tell me a lot. You can do a lot with it. Plus, it's something you're passionate about, so you need to do it. And so I wound up majoring in something based on her advice.
Wow.
And then I started to cultivate these gifts in me that I still use today in powerful ways based on her coaching and influence.
You are so beautifully eloquent And one big reason is because of that investment right there. She saw that gift inside of you and she began to cultivate what you held intrinsically on the inside of you. And boy, kudos to every teacher out there. If you are a teacher, then recognize the power that you have to see value and worth in your students and to literally tap into that treasure and mine for the gold that they carry, because you could change the trajectory of their lives. And that is so powerful. A teacher has such impact in our lives. Because really, other than teaching a classroom, they don't have to do that. But she cared enough to do that.
She did. But I had another teacher who saw in me a desire to just learn more and would invite me to see Shakespeare plays in another city.
Wow.
And I just had great teachers. And I think it's really influenced me for the duration of my life to have had these teachers who inspired me to do more, to read the captions under photos. That impacts the way that I study, the way that I see things, my ability to pay attention to details. That helps me as a trainer and facilitator and a leader. And they had a hand in all of that. So whenever it's Teachers Week or Teachers Month, I'm all in. Yes, let's inspire and encourage and motivate teachers.
Well, and all of those things really fed in and were seeds planted in the soil of Vonnetta West. And now you are one that are taking all those things and generating value in your world. So how did some of those things literally impact what you are doing today?
Yeah, I don't believe I would be the type of facilitator that I am without those influences, from the bullying to the experiencing the tension in the college space to being in great teachers. I see it all show up. And there's a movie that I love called Signs. And in the end of the movie, you see all of these signs that led up to the moment that helped the main character figure out what to do. At the end of the movie. He has a flashback to his wife telling him different things, and he knows what they meant in that moment. And I think that's true for our lives. I definitely see it in my life, where everything adds up. And I can think back on moments where I felt pain, or where I felt a sense of purpose or belonging, or where I thought, wow, I'm really learning something here. Even the ways that I've been mentored in my adult life. And sometimes people think I'm grown now, I don't need a mentor. I need a mentor now and leadership now more than I ever have, just because my influence is increasing and I want to handle that with integrity.
I appreciate you saying that. That is so powerful.
Important.
So
very important.
I think that is absolutely crucial. We all need to mentor someone, but we all need to be mentored, no matter what our age, no matter what our level of influence. So could you tell me a little bit about that? Can you tell me about the mentors that you chose or chose you, and how does that impact your life now as one who does generate value in their world?
Yeah, I've had study mentors. When I say that, I mean just from the perspective of someone guiding me in how to study life, how to study and dig into different teachings for the purpose of living, not for the purpose of being able to tell people I know this. But how do we take the things we learn and translate it into real life? How can we be great messages instead of always trying to tell people great messages? How can we show up for humanity? When I moved to Metro Atlanta, I ran into a mentor at the church I was attending. She would become a mentor. She was over teachers training for our church. And I started to run into her in local stores. And I was like, what's going on here? Because it just was so random. And eventually she invited me over and just became a mentor in life. Practical things, how to show up well, how to be well prepared, how to be a leader, how to influence actions instead of just speaking, how to be kind, but also how to be firm, in leadership and just as a person, how to serve. She switched my perspective
There you go.
from volunteer to service,
Yep.
which is very important.
Yes.
And so it's just had a meaningful impact. And still today is someone that I connect with and I will tell me, maybe you need to think about this. But the dynamics have changed, where it's more reciprocal, but it's also more of her guiding versus telling. So I think the more time we spend with each other, mentoring relationships, they grow and they become more reciprocal, but you're still learning from a person.
That's right. Really,
But
that's
maturity
partnership,
matters.
isn't it? There's this beautiful exchange of life where as you're talking, I'm growing. As I'm talking, you're growing. And when you know somebody
Iron sharp
really...
as iron.
Pardon?
Yeah. Iron sharp as iron.
Exactly. And when you're in safe, trusted relationships, there can be such an exchange of life, of dialogue, of heart, that literally we not just have a safe place, but we are in a place that we can grow and advance and impact our world on a much greater level because we're not doing it alone. We're collaborating together. It's kind of what we're doing today.
Yes.
And that is so beautiful. Yes. Well, as we close this interview, Vonnetta, is there anything that you feel you want to communicate to someone that maybe is struggling today? Maybe they are hurting with devaluation or being prejudiced against or going through situations and circumstances that are just so painful in their life. What would you like to tell them?
I would tell them that perspective matters. It's one of the main things I would convey, that we all at some point in our lives have to clean the lens that we're using to view our lives. And sometimes the things we see are not as they appear, that oftentimes when we're in moments that are really pressing us, they're our most growing moments and our most profound learning moments. And it's important to see those. Even when people tell us, you shouldn't feel that way or think that way, we have to start to say, hey, why do I think that way? Where does that come from? Where does that bias or that prejudice come from? And this is so important, Melody, because when I'm talking to people, I'm talking to them from a posture of we all have things we need to change, no matter what it is. If you say someone's complicit in racism, if they're dealing and grappling with white supremacy, if they're struggling through bias or prejudice against other people groups, then we start to ask why and how do I come out of that? And then when I do, how do I use it to lift humanity?
There you go.
We all have that opportunity. We have that's my word of the month, opportunity. And whenever I'm in a space over the last month, I've been saying, let's think about opportunity. That even if I have a bias, I have an opportunity to unlearn it. And then in my unlearning, I can use what I unlearned in my process to help other people. That's how we're going to create community. Now, not by shaming people for thoughts they've been indoctrinated so that they accept it, but by saying, hey, when you unlearn that, let's go pay it forward. Let's find out how we can use that you've unlearned to help other people.
Wow, how beautifully eloquent. Thank you so much for sharing your story today, Vonnetta. I so value and appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Melody.
I want to thank you for listening and encourage you to become a part of the StopDevaluation movement. Be sure to like and follow #StopDevaluation on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and visit StopDevaluation.com for more information and free resources. You can help spread the movement by sharing with others, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, and most of all, by living a courageous lifestyle of using your power for good. Go out and value someone today. Your life matters, and you can make the world a better place. One word, one choice, one action of validation at a time.